Hello guys and welcome to a new video. Today I'm going to be showing you the process of an illustration I just finished of the main characters from Campaign 2 of Critical Role. For anyone who isn't familiar with Critical Role, it's a show that broadcasts on Alpha, Twitch and YouTube, where a bunch of voice actors from various different TV shows and games and things like that will get together and play Dungeons and Dragons. Now, I got into Critical Role about a year and a half ago because I was actually commissioned by someone to draw their D&D party. And at the time I knew absolutely nothing about D&D because it's just not something that I've ever been introduced to in real life. None of my friends were interested in it. There's nowhere locally that holds game sessions or anything. We have some comic shops now and they hold gaming sessions, but for some reason there's still no D&D ones, which is strange. But yeah, it's just not something I've ever had the opportunity to explore in real life. And so I wanted to do my research to get this commission right, but there's just so much to take in with D&D. I was just kind of overwhelmed and I just thought, I don't really know where to start with this. So I was talking to my friend Lizzie Rain, who is an incredible artist. She's also been involved with the D&D community for a lot of years. She's a player, she's a DM, and so I was talking to her and she sent me some advice and some resources and stuff, and also said try watching Critical Role if you want to learn how to play. So at the time, I think Critical Role was the only D&D show that Lizzie had seen, and so that was the one I was introduced to first. There are a lot of others that came both before and after Critical Role, so there's Adventure Zone, High Rollers, there's so many others, and I'm not saying Critical Role is the best or the only one that you should watch, but at this present point in time, Critical Role is the one that I've checked out first, and it's the one that helped me learn how to play. And due to time constraints, because these things are a big time investment, I just haven't got round to checking out many of the others. So I definitely will at some point, but at this present point, Critical Role is pretty much the only D&D podcast that I've seen. So this was back when Campaign 1 was still running, and so I started to watch it to kind of try and get the hang of how the game worked and what it was all about, but I started to enjoy it much more than just as a learning tool, which was what I had originally kind of viewed it as. And the thing that struck me the most was the sense of camaraderie between the players. You can really see the closeness between them and how well they bounce off each other and how well they embody their characters. And this was something entirely new to me, and I will freely admit that it did take me a while to get the hang of it and kind of keep up with what was going on, because the whole concept of role-playing a character was something I had never approached before. I've always been a storyteller, but I've always worked alone. I've never done collaborative storytelling, I've never written a story with someone else, I've never done roleplay in any capacity. And so this whole idea of becoming your character instead of just writing about your character was very new and kind of intimidating for someone who wanted to go into it as a player. But I found it very inspiring and motivating to watch how these actors portrayed their characters. And obviously they're actors, they know how to do this, they've got experience in it from before. And I am one of those people that hated drama at school, I hated performing arts. I would cry if I had to do a presentation in front of the class because I got so stressed. I just wanted to sit at the back of the class and pretend I didn't exist, basically. And so the whole idea of acting is something that I would never in a million years do. I would never even consider it in any capacity. So going into D&D has been quite intimidating for me in a way, because it's the idea of becoming this character is really nerve-wracking. But watching Critical Role really helped me with that. And there are many ways to play D&D, so if you just want to play it as a dungeon crawler and you just want to kill monsters and not really consider anything else, then you can do that. And I think it's great that you can approach it in so many different ways. But if you really want to push the roleplay aspect and develop your character and make a story with your companions instead of just a game, then I think that's really fascinating, and that's definitely the route that I wanted to go with. So watching these actors just become those characters right in front of your eyes is really incredible, I think, and it has helped me a lot to kind of shake off a lot of inhibitions that I had about becoming a player. So after I'd been watching Critical Role for a little while and reading up on it and kind of getting the hang of how D&D worked, I sat in on one of Lizzie's games and then was asked if I wanted to join the campaign. And so I was really excited to join this campaign and also really nervous because I just didn't want to mess it up for anyone else. And so, as you guys know, I came into the campaign as a wood elf barbarian called Taryn, and my motivation for picking this kind of character was very similar to how Travis Willingham described his decision to play Grog, who is a barbarian, in Campaign 1. He said that he chose that kind of character because he was worried that remembering loads of magic spells would be complicated for somebody who was relatively new to the game, and also that he didn't want to be burdened with the whole concept of leadership and thinking up combat plans and so on. And so he decided that his character was not going to be particularly smart. And I kind of went the same way with Taran. I just thought, I think it would be easier for me as a first-time player if I pick a character who just hits things and doesn't really think about stuff, because then I can let everyone else get on with making complicated plans and I can just be the tank. And so at first my initial mindset was just making a character who didn't think for the sake of not having to think. He just likes to fight and get drunk. But over time, he's really changed as a character. And again, I've said this a lot, but it was very new to me to have my character bouncing off of other characters and developing that way instead of developing on their own as part of a story. And so with D&D you have to learn to be reactive, you have to learn to respond in real time to things that are happening, to make decisions very quickly, and to literally become your character. You don't have the time to think, what might they do now, and sit back and think about it, you just have to do it. And at first my decision making was horrible. I would take so long to decide what I was doing, I would forget my character's abilities, and obviously with a barbarian you don't have to remember spells, but your character has other abilities to remember, and I would even forget to rage, which isn't very good at all. So it was pretty bad. And so over time I've had to learn to kind of get over those things, and the great thing about D&D is it's not a punishing environment, but you do have to steadily learn to act faster and respond faster. You don't want to hold up the game for the sake of the other players and the DM who are all working so hard, and so you have to keep track of what you're doing and what your character is capable of. And I feel that it has helped me with real life skills. I'm not a person who is great at talking to other people at all, and so having to suddenly become this wood elf who was very abrupt and ineloquent and had no manners whatsoever is something that was a real challenge for me. Even though I picked a character that wouldn't be a leader in any capacity, he still has to communicate, and so it's something that I have been learning and working on over time. I feel that my decision making has improved. I feel that my ability to just respond to things generally faster has got better, and it's still a work in progress, but because my skills that I've slowly been learning from playing the game and from communicating with the other players have therefore helped me in real life, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that at this point Critical Role and D&D has changed my life in a way. Not to mention the fact that now that I'm in the D&D community, which is such a lovely community, most of my commissioners have now found me through my D&D work, so I have this incredible list of commissions to work on which has elves and tieflings and furbolgs and all sorts of wonderful things on it, and I'm so grateful that you guys have entrusted me to draw your beautiful character designs. So yeah, it's changed my life in that way as well. So I've been meaning to do this piece for a while, but it was just one of those things where I kept saying I'll get around to that eventually and then just not doing it. And I have a horrible habit of doing this, just telling myself, oh, that piece will take too long, I'll do it another time. And then the time when I have enough time doesn't quite happen. And so I need to kind of knuckle down and just say, actually, I don't think this is going to take that long at all. And in the end, this didn't take as long as I expected. It was a 10-hour piece because I cut down the detail in my line art a bit, so I didn't use quite as much line depth and dimension or vary my line widths as much. I just generally didn't work into it as much as I normally would, and then I did all the colouring on one layer, which is something that I did then end up struggling with a little bit along the way because you have to use your tools in a different way. When you're blending colours, obviously, if you go over into the next shade, then you might mix up your colours in the way you don't want to. Whereas in my standard way of doing it, you're just free to play around more because you've got all the colours separated onto different layers. At least that's the way that I see it. I mean, everyone works differently. But for me, usually I would split up every part of the character into a different layer. So I'd have the hair flats on one, the skin flats on another, and so on. But on this piece, that would have been so time consuming, I just did not have the time to do that. So I decided to just do all of the colouring on one layer with another layer for like special effects and luminosity layers and things like that, and then I just worked on it as quickly as I could while maintaining as much detail as I could. I've given each character a different lighting effect and slightly different lighting tone, if that makes sense. And so that was my way of kind of differentiating them all. So I've given Ford the blue up lighting from the bottom, I've given Caleb the very bright red lighting from his fire, and then there's Jester with her lollipop, and I haven't allowed those lighting effects to bleed onto the other characters apart from Matt in the middle. So I wanted Matt to kind of seem omniscient in a way, so he's there but he's not there. He's kind of involved with all the characters, and at the same time those colours are bleeding into him and making him sort of melt into the background a little bit. And I probably could have achieved this effect better if I'd put more time into it, but I just did what I could with the time I had. And so what you have here are the main cast of Campaign 2. And for anyone who is curious, Campaign 1 and Campaign 2 are not continuous to each other. So you don't need to have seen 1 to watch 2, just in case anyone is thinking they want to get into it but they're very intimidated by how many episodes are already out. They are separate, and so that's what I enjoy about Campaign 2, is that we've had this whole new set of characters to jump into and enjoy their adventures as we go. Whereas when I got into Campaign 1, it's an amazing series with amazing characters and I do love them all. Because I was so far behind already at the point I got in, I found it hard to kind of keep up the enthusiasm for it because I wasn't discussing it with other people as it went on. I wasn't seeing the fan art that came out as it happened. I was just trying to work through it as quickly as possible to get to the end, and in the end I didn't. I got to episode 35 before Campaign 2 started, and I decided to start watching that one so that I would be up to speed. So that's just, for me, why I found Campaign 2 much easier to get into, but honestly, each set of characters is just wonderful in their own way. So what we have here are, from the top, we have Mollymock, who is a Tiefling Blood Hunter played by Taliesin Jaffe. We have Caduceus, who is a Furbolg Cleric, and I'm not going to tell you who he's played by because that's spoiler territory. Then we've got Matthew Mercer in the middle, who is the DM, and I just wanted to include him because it can be kind of weird for DMs, I think, from what I've been told, is that you're kind of part of the game but not part of the game because you're the one in control of the world. And so I wanted to just include Matt in this because I thought it seemed fair, and especially because I'm planning to give this piece to the cast at MCM London, and so I just thought it would be nice to put him in there. Next we have Jester, who is the Tiefling Cleric played by Laura Bailey. We've got Ford, who is the half-orc warlock played by Travis Willingham. We've got Yasha, who is an Azimar barbarian played by Ashley Johnson. We have Caleb, who is a human wizard who is played by Liam O'Brien. We've got Bo, who is a human monk played by Marisha Ray, and at the bottom we've got Not, who is a goblin rogue played by Sam Regal. Oh, and we also have Caleb's magical cat Frumpkin as well. So these are all the main long-term cast for Critical Role Campaign 2. I haven't drawn any of the guest players, or characters rather, just because of lack of space and time, but I would love to draw some of them in the future, especially Caliana, who was played by Mark Holmes from High Rollers. She was a really amazing character and I'd love to see more of her in the future. And yeah, I just wanted to fit in as much as I could with the little time I had and just do justice to how much Critical Role has come to mean to me. And like I said, the group are going to be at London MCM, which is a convention I'm going to in a few days. So I'm just going to put a bit of shameless self-promotion in here. I'm going to be there at Comic Village table 235, which is at the back facing the gangway, so hopefully it shouldn't be too hard to find me. I will be sharing with Baron Nobody. I'm going to have this print in the standard luster format and also a limited edition pearlescent 300 GSM cardstock version, so please do stop by if you'd like to purchase either of those or any of my other products. I am going to be meeting the Critical Role cast, so I'm going to be giving them a copy of this and some other artwork I've done. So I am extremely nervous. I'm really worried I'm going to say something stupid, but yeah, I'm going to see how it goes, so I'm very, very excited, very, very nervous. So yeah, if you happen to come by my table and I'm not there, that's where I'll be. I'll just be screaming at the Critical Role cast in the politest possible way. So yeah, I really hope to see you there. I hope you enjoyed seeing the process of this piece. I have included right from the sketch stage at the very beginning because I've had some requests recently to show my drawings right from the start, and I usually don't record the early sketch stage because it's just such a mess, but since you guys have asked, there you go. It's really a case of right at the beginning just throwing things at the screen and seeing if they stick. Obviously not physically, that would not be very good for my tablet, but yes, it's just a case of these super, super quick scribbles. I think most of them took about a minute, 30 seconds, something like that, just to get a very, very basic preliminary idea down I've had a cold, guys, my brain is mush. And then I just throw around these preliminary sketches and see what happens and move them around, reshape them, shift them about, and then if I like it I then go on to the second sketch stage and then the line art. Like I've said before, I have now got into the habit of doing thumbnails, so I would normally do that but I just didn't have the time here. So yeah, this is how it came about. So I hope you guys like the end result. I'm really happy with what I've achieved in the little time I had. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you like the final piece. I really hope the Critical Role cast like this piece as well, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!